So thank you again for joining our fourth presentation this week. This presentation is about accessing external data. Typically companies who run their businesses run it off accounting systems and CRM systems, sales systems. All of those have got something in common, and that is that they use relational databases to collect their data in at a very detailed level. And in today's example, we are going to use an Access database, connect to it and pull data from that Access database into a multi-dimensional PowerOLAP cube. The series runs from Tuesday to Friday. The other three, session 1 on Tuesdays, is the introductory presentation. I suggest everybody attends that if they haven't yet. That will get you going in using the Quick Start manual with the PowerOLAP Personal software that you might have downloaded. I suggest you do that as well. Download the software, install and license it. The Quick Start manual is available in the materials section at the bottom of your GoToMeeting screen. So do go and get that. The other sessions, there are links in a Word document there to the other sessions, and please, if you haven't done so, then please register for the other sessions from Tuesday to Thursday. The second session is about looking at the PowerOLAP interface and how to create slices in the PowerOLAP interface. The third session is how we take those PowerOLAP slices into Excel in various ways so that the end users can work in their familiar Excel interface. These sessions are running from Tuesday to Friday, alternatively each week at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So just quick introduction if you haven't been with us this week or before. PARIS stands for Planning, Analysis, Reporting, Information Systems. The area of analytics that we pride ourselves to be very good in is the area of budgeting and forecasting. So whereas other business intelligence tools can do up to the instant reporting and analysis of historic and current data, we can do that as well as look into the future of a company's business by doing budgeting and forecasting and running multiple forecasts, keeping track of it all, and being able to slice the variances between these budgets and forecasts. So that is a little bit more about our company, Paris Technologies. Here is the agenda for today. The OLAP Exchange functionality is what we're going to use to connect to the relational database. We're also going to be looking at the basics of writing cube formulas within the PowerOLAP interface. And then finally, we're going to do an import and export exercise of data. So the way that OLAP Exchange works is it is an interface or a part of our tool set that sits in between the relational databases. It pulls data from general ledger, sales automation, manufacturing systems into multi-dimensional cubes from where the reports can be sliced out to Excel and other interfaces. Our own web interface is called Leonardo, but it is also possible to populate popular web front ends like ClickView and Tableau. These interfaces with our own is bidirectional. So you can see these arrows over here doesn't just go in one direction. In other words, if you, for instance, sit with an Excel spreadsheet, but this can happen in in a web front end too. It is possible to put in a value, write it back into the PowerOLAP database, and it is even possible to write a value from Excel all the way back into a relational database where it can be accessed by other systems as well. So that's the architectural setup that we're going to look at. And let's then jump into demonstration. The first thing that we need to do when we work with OLAP Exchange is we need to create an Odbc driver. So I'm going to type in Odbc. There are two drivers on your Windows 64-bit machines these days. The one is a 32-bit version, the other one is a 64-bit version. The PowerOLAP Personal software that you would have installed is a 32-bit application, and therefore you're going to use the 32-bit version of Odbc to create a new data source. And the place where we're going to do it is under System DSN, where multiple users can access it. I'm going to click on the Add button, and on the Microsoft Access driver, that's the one we're going to select. Then we're going to go to the C drive, and where I have got my PowerOLAP Personal Demonstrations. Sorry, it's not in there, it's in here. There we go. So that is the database that we're going to connect to. And let me just show you what is in this database. So the first table will contain all of the numbers that we want to report on. So you can see here travel expenses. If we scroll up all the way to the top, you'll see net sales and sales over there. And then we have got in this area these fields over here: region ID, product ID, and month ID. So for each of these tables, month, product, and region, there is a link, a numeric link that will connect us to the names of the months and the products and the regions. I'm going to move this back to the bottom because we're going to do something afterwards over here. Let's just do that. Let's look at the month table. You can see there's the ID that we're going to connect on between the two tables. There's the name of the month. So January is represented by the month ID code 103. There's a total member that we're going to roll it up in. There is a quarter that we're going to roll up. So January will roll up into the first quarter, which in turn will roll up into the total here. The product dimension, we have got a product name, a total product, a product category. So you'll see laptop and desktop is in the category computers, and the monitors are both in the monitor category. There's also in this table, there's a sales price and a cost price that we can pull through into reports, which I'm also going to show you. And then the regions, this is the regions dimension, where we've got a code, a country, and then a subcontinent. So the country, if there is a subcontinent, it will roll into subcontinent before it rolls into the continent. So Austria will roll into Southern Europe, which will roll into Europe, which will roll into total regions. So those are the tables that we'll be working with in this database. And I click OK. I'm going to give the name OLAP Exchange Demo and click OK. And there is our new Odbc connection that we can now use in our PowerOLAP database. I've already opened up an empty database. It doesn't contain any dimensions. It doesn't contain any cubes and slices. And we're going to go into this area called data. We'll specifically be looking at the import and export at the end of this presentation. And at the beginning here, we're going to look at creating and processing cubes. So I'm going to click here on Create a Cube, and then I'm going to select the driver the access driver that we have created a link for, a data source name and the link to that access database. So there it appears. I'm going to click OK. We're going to call this the sales cube. And I'm not going to explain all the detailed functionality that's available over here. It's going to take too much time for this half-an-hour presentation. So now we're going to start off by looking at the measures table, which is that accounts table, the top one over here. We can preview this table also inside PowerOLAP like we did in the Access interface. And we're going to call this dimension the accounts dimension. And in this area, we're going to select all of these members, net sales, cost of sales. These are the detailed accounts that we want to bring through into our cube. Then we click on Next and click on Finish, and that gives us our first dimension. The next three dimensions will all be part of this star schema around the central accounts table, the months, the region, and the months, the regions, and the products. So the next one we're going to use is the months. So we're going to connect the month ID to the ID in the months table so that we can link to the name of the month, which we're going to use as the dimension member name, and then click Next. We're not going to do anything in terms of aliases or properties. Property here could be, for instance, let's do that, the quarter. So it will bring through which quarter a specific month is in. And then the hierarchy over here, the first level is going to be, or the highest level is going to be the total here. The next level will be the quarter. And that is basically it for the month dimension. We click Finish. The next dimension is going to be the product dimension. And we're going to link the product ID to the product ID in the product table so that we can get to the product name. We are also going to do a draw through. So I'm going to click over here and click on Next. And the draw through values are going to be the sales price and the cost price, which you will see later on in relational reports that we will be creating. Then the properties we're going to skip, but in the aliases we want to create a new alias where we're going to have the product name and the product ID at the end of the name as an alias for the product. So that's that. The properties we're going to skip. Total products, then product category is going to roll into total product, and the product is going to roll into product category. So that's my third dimension. And my fourth dimension is going to be the last one, regions, where we're going to connect the region ID to the region ID in the regions table. And we are going to bring through the country as the dimension name, the member name, sorry. And we skip aliases and properties and create the hierarchy. So total here, total regions at the top. Sorry, we didn't do that correct. Total region continent is a sub of the total regions, and subcontinent is below the continent. Click Next and Finish, and there's our 4 dimensions. So when I now click the OK button, PowerOLAP will first give me the option to save the structure that I created over here as a text file that I can later import, which I'm not going to do now, but it makes it easy for us to not have to go through this process of designing the cubes. I'm going to click no. And once it's finished, you'll see that it has, in that short time, it has created the structure of the cube, and also imported the 8,623 data points from that Access database. Let's look at that cube now. So let's take a slice, and we are going to slice this region by product. So you can see all the numbers adding up already. If we look at the product dimension first, you'll see, let's look at the hierarchy. There is the total product, there's the product categories and the products below those. We can have a look at the regions dimension. Now, over here, we have got a hierarchy that is not, that has got different depths. So Asia Pacific only has got one level below it, but Europe and Americas have got two levels. So there's Southern Europe, Northern Europe, and Western Europe. And the same with Americas, you've got North and South America. So what we're going to do here is we're going to select a different display group. Sorry, it's not in this one that we want the display group. We want it in the products. Let's just go here and change the display group to the product name concatenated with a product ID. So look at the label that you see at the moment here. Now you'll see the product with the product ID concatenated at the end of it. That is what we did when we created that alias. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a slice for product by account. So I'm going to rearrange the dimension here. Take regions to the top and bring accounts, product by account. There we go. What you'll see here is the aggregations of the different dimensions. The thing that I would like to show you as well is currently in the month dimension, if we look at the hierarchy, you'll see that they are not in order. So the second quarter is in front of the third quarter. Inside the first quarter, you'll see that January is not in front of February. So we're going to do something before we go on, and that's going to be this part called Modify Dimension. So I'm going to click on this button and go into the month dimension. This is something that you can do at any time with the specific dimension to modify the structure of that dimension. So it's warning us that we will have to rebuild our cubes afterwards. So click OK, and we are going to say define order, and we click next, and the order is going to be by I think it's month ID, which we can say, and we're going to, so it's a normal SQL statement. It's going to be ascending. Click OK, and click next, and click next, click next, and click finish. So we can again save the new structure. Click, we're not going to do that. Click yes, so it rebuilds our cube and our data structure. And if we now go into our month dimension, you will see that first quarter is now listed at the top, and January, February, and March is in the correct order. So that functionality of modified dimension is very useful if you want to add or remove things from the structure of dimensions in your cubes. The next thing that we're going to look at is adding data to an existing cube. So if you look at this value over here, we're going to add something to the laser printer. I'm going to go into Access and go to the accounts dimension. That's laser printers number 90. So we're going to type in 8624 and just keep the same members. Product ID 90, month ID 117, and the value that we're going to put in is, let's do 2 million so that we can see the effect of that new value. Enter, and then save this table. And then when I rebuild my cube, so I can, the next thing that I will show you is how to rebuild a cube. There are different options where you can either only rebuild fact data, which we can do right now. So the metadata is not going to be updated. We can select that option. But the fact data, we're going to rebuild the fact data from scratch. So I click OK, and there should be 8,624 data points that we have rebuilt, and you would have seen this value jumping up with the 2 million that it was before. So before it was about 21,319, and now it's 2 million that you would have seen coming in over there under the travel expenses. Good. So the next thing we're going to look at is cube formulas. We're going to go to Model tab, and we click on the cube button and click on the cube where we want to write formulas. The first thing that you need to understand is that PowerOLAP replaces in one formula typically thousands or even millions of Excel formulas of a model that is similar to this one. So you need to understand that we have got about 30 month members, we have got about 30 regions, we've got, let's say, 10 accounts, and we have got, let's say, 20 products as well, members in each of those dimensions. And when we write a formula, we can do it for all of those dimensions simultaneously. So I'm going to write a formula for gross margin, which means when I select gross margin, you'll see it automatically builds the syntax for me. And you can see here it changed from all to selected. So I select gross margin. Now, on the month dimension, I'm going to select all of the months. I could select a single month, and then it will specify that single month, but I'm going to select all of the months. Same with the products, all of the products, and all of the regions. So this piece of syntax, which I created with the curly brackets on the left-hand side of my formula, this little piece of syntax creates the syntax for all the gross margin calculations for all the regions, months, and products. It is a very powerful formula language. So the less you specify on the left-hand side, the broader the area in a cube is that the formula will calculate. So effectively, it will calculate all intersections except the ones for the accounts dimension, the other accounts, but all the others will be calculated. So on the left-hand side, we use the curly brackets. That is the area of the cube that will be populated. So in our case, it's going to be gross margin over here that we're going to calculate. On the right-hand side of the formula, after the equal sign, we are going to calculate the gross margin, which is going to be from the sales cube. Now, there's only one cube at the moment in this database, but there could be more than one cube. So we select the cube sales. It's going to be sales minus cost of sales. So that is our calculation for gross margin. We're going to check syntax, and there's nothing wrong with our syntax. I ended the formula with a semicolon. All the formulas you will see goes into this one interface. When I press F9, you'll see the numbers being calculated over here. We're going to write one more formula. It's going to be, a formula for gross margin percentage. So I'm going to go into the accounts dimension and add a new member called gross margin percentage. You can put it at the end. And what we need to do is we need to persist this member. That means when we rebuild the metadata of this cube, in other words, the account structure, it will not delete this member that does not exist in the relational database structure. So this is a member that we have created that doesn't exist in the Access database. Click OK and click OK. There is our new member. I'm just going to pull it back here after gross margin. There is the new member, and let's write a formula for that. So in the sales cube, we're going to write a second formula for account gross margin percentage. Again, we're going to do it for all months, products, and regions. And that is going to be equal to gross margin divided by net sales. Put a semicolon, check syntax, and click OK. So what I want you to observe is that both of these formulas gets input here in one central place. If you compare it with Excel, you will notice that Excel will put, you will need to put this formula logic in each cell for each product, month, and region to calculate. So just to prove to you what I'm talking about, there is our calculation. If I go into any specific month, let's go to February, that value and the gross margin is calculated. If I go to a different region, that value is calculated. If I go to a different product, all of these values are calculated. So that's the end of the OLAP Exchange and the formula demonstration. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to export and import data. Hang on, there's one more thing that I want to do over here. So if I go to total region and I double click on this value, I want to show you how we can drill through to the relational data source. So the sales price and cost of sales, the cost price is not included in the report at the moment. But if we want to look at the sales price and cost of sales, sales price and cost price, then I've double clicked on one of these members, click OK, and it creates a report that looks like this. There's our sales price and cost price. And if I click on slice, I can take it out to Excel and look at this report inside an Excel spreadsheet. So there is my sales price and my cost price. Right, so let's go back to the exercise of, let's just go back into PowerOLAP. We're going to close this. Let's go to data, export metadata. So I'm going to export the structure of my cube, and we will call it metadata. So it will export the formulas and the dimensions and their members. Click OK. And then the fact data I'm also going to export. I'm going to create a task to export. And I can schedule this task so that I can do it even at night without observance, without somebody looking at the process. We're going to call this fact data. We're going to skip zeros, aggregates, and calculated values. So it's only going to export the values that was imported from the Access database. And we're going to say that we just want January, February, and March. So it's January, February, and March. Click Next, click Finish, and then I can execute this task by clicking on that button. It's executed it. Click Done. Let's go to my directory where I have exported it into. So there's my fact data. This is what it looks like. Let's do that. So you'll see the different names of the members in each dimension. So the first column will be the counts, the second column the months, the third column the product, the fourth column the region, and then at the end the value that we've exported. That's the everything only for January, February, and March. And then the metadata looks like this, where we've exported the names of the members in the dimension. So in the first column is really a command that says create a dimension called accounts, create in the counts dimension a member called net sales, create in the month dimension properties called second quarter for April, and also member names, the M plus and the P plus, and there's a hierarchy which puts first quarter into total here, and which puts April, for instance, into second quarter. Here's my product dimension, and here's my regions dimension, and then at the end you'll see the formulas as well. So what I'm going to do with this text file is I'm going to close the current PowerOLAP database. We don't need to save it. And I'm going to open a database called import. And what we're going to do is use the import metadata first. So there's the metadata. That creates the structure of the cube. So if I take a slice from the cube, you'll see right now there's no data in there. Let's just flip it around so that, there we go. And then I'm going to import the fact data. It matches all the dimensions that I've got in the cube in my new database, and it's going to set the values. Click OK, press F9. You'll see the values for January, February, and March that have been imported over here. That totals now into the first quarter. So I see our time is up. Thank you very, ladies and gentlemen, that you have attended this fourth and final session. I hope you enjoy your weekend. If you have got any questions, then please write us or type into the chat box at the bottom. I do advise that if you haven't attended all the other series, all the other presentation in the series, that you do so from Tuesday to Friday, as I said earlier. And I also want to show you this last slide. Please visit our YouTube channel called Paris Tech TV, where you will find more training examples and videos that covers different topics that is not covered in these training sessions. So please do so. There's lots of information to be learnt in those. I see there are no communication back from the participants, so I thank you very much and look forward to seeing you in a future presentation. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.